Cindy Berry Addis, and I have been working with A Course in Miracles for 33 years, and I use it as a daily process in my life, whether I read it or just apply the principles. And I have 2 Course in Miracles groups that generally meet every week, except for now we're kind of suspended, so we're doing a teleconference call. But I have a center called The Grange, and we meet here and study and work with A Course in Miracles and the concepts that it presents us so that we can create more peace in our lives and learn how to deal with the situations that come up. So that's me.
Yeah, and that's how I met you. You met my mom, is that right? Did she adjust your horses?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's how I originally met you, Jenny, as I met your mom. She was doing chiropractic work for one of my horses, and she asked about the Grange, and so I told her what we did here, and she decided she wanted to see what it was about, because I think she said, oh, yeah, I have that book.
Right. It's the big blue one that sits on the shelf, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you make it so easy to understand with what you do there with the groups. And I think we started with you, 10 years ago now?
Probably, at least, probably 10 years ago, I would think, yeah. I remember you guys used to come quite regularly before your lives changed. So it was, and
we're all so grateful.
And we always end up in the place where we need to be. So, when we move on, it's because, Spirit has a different idea of what it wants us to do and how we can touch others' lives. So that's a beautiful experience to be able to follow that divine guidance.
Yeah, and just the way that you explain A Course in Miracles, it has helped me to continue reading it and have an understanding. So that I'm very grateful for. And today I wanted to talk to you a little bit just about the perspective of how we can look at such a difficult situation that's showing up. It's interesting how it's global. So it's showing up for all of us. And how can we look at it and heal it and do the work that we're here to do in such an intense situation like this one?
Yeah, and I think you had said initially you wanted to talk about Lesson 14, that God did not create a meaningless world.
Oh, yes.
But A Course in Miracles would tell us that the world that we live in was not created by God. It's created by our thoughts. And so if we want to change what we're seeing in the world, we have to do the transformative forgiveness work on the thoughts that we hold in our mind. And what I see collectively is that billions of people around the world are not aware that they have an unconscious mind filled with thoughts of pain and difficulty and suffering from this lifetime and many other lifetimes. And the ego mind's job is to project that out onto this screen we call the world. And so that's why we're seeing one of these huge situations that is global, so that people who do understand and are working at that level of transforming the unconscious mind can start to do their work. And, of course, we've all been doing that right along. If we studied A Course in Miracles or doing work like Ho'oponopono, where you take responsibility for what you see in the world. But when we have lots of people who are unconscious, who are not aware of the dynamic that's taking place, it creates a global situation because everyone is projecting out. And, of course, it's happening at this point in time because this is not A Course in Miracles, but we're moving from the Piscean age into the Aquarian age, and it's a very chaotic time period. Mm-hmm. And so it's happening at this point in time for a very specific reason, for people to become aware and to awaken to the truth that there's another way of looking at this world. And I'd like to also say that, everyone that's here, all the light workers who are here, we volunteered to be here at this point in time to help hold a vision of light for this transformation to take place during these very dark and difficult times. And even the people who are here experiencing it, and maybe they're not a light worker, they still volunteered to come in, and they chose to come in and be here at this point in time for whatever learning purpose they have. That may not be everyone's belief system, but that certainly is my belief system. Yeah. So I think the process of doing your forgiveness work, which is very transformative, is going to help to change what we're looking at in the world. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yes, absolutely. And so when fear does come up, because we don't want to push it down and pretend it's not there. When it comes up, what is something, according to A Course in Miracles or whatever, however you want to come at this question, but how can we forgive it and do that work?
Yes, and well, first it takes the understanding that forgiveness does not mean that I, forgive someone for something. Forgiveness means to release and let go of the past. So you're being shown something that you're fearful about, and generally the form it takes is that something will happen to the body, which is, of course, not our true identity. But the ego mind gets us to be very fearful about anything happening to the body because we believe that's what we are right now. And so the way that I would do forgiveness work, and the way I always help my Course in Miracles people do it, is that we say, okay, I'm taking responsibility for my part in having to help to create this situation of this coronavirus or whatever, by the the negativity and the conflict and pain that I've projected out. And I don't know where I have that. I just know it's stored. I don't know what it's connected to, but I don't need to know that. I just need to be willing to release it and let it go. So I say to the Holy Spirit, help me to see the part of my mind that is in pain here and that needs to be transformed. I'm willing to give it to you to be transformed. That's what I would do, and that's what I do. It's like any time that I would experience fear or anxiety, I would say, okay, I'm willing to give this to the Holy Spirit to be transformed so it can be released. And that's what forgiveness is really about. It's not the Christian idea not that Christian idea of forgiveness is bad. It's simply very different. It's releasing and letting go of the past. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a thing that we're all being presented with. It's very transformative. Anything that causes fear to arise shows us that we have forgiveness and healing work to do. And what this is for people who study A Course in Miracles is that we're recognizing, I'm really looking at my body as my truth. And when I come back and I say, my truth is my connection to my source, my oneness with God, at the level of the mind with all the other holy sons of God, then I feel really strong and invulnerable. But when I look out and I see myself as a body that is in this world and has all these different problems, I become very vulnerable to fear and anxiety and pain because I now feel separated from my source. And that is why A Course in Miracles says there's only one problem and really only one solution. The problem is you feel separate from God, your source, and the solution is to correct that through forgiveness. So anytime anything comes up, you just ask the Holy Spirit and say, help me to see this differently. I'm willing to give it to you to be transformed. Or even work with Jesus or the Holy Spirit, because, of course, Jesus is the voice of A Course in Miracles.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, it feels very, very different, just the energy in the past couple of weeks and where we are now with everything. Do you think that this is part of the transformation of seeing the forgiven world, that because there's so much upheaval that there's more of us that can choose that and wake up in a sense? Do you think that this is a transformational time?
I think it probably exists for many reasons on many different levels, but certainly it is for people to go within because look how we are isolated from each other and we have to stay home. And okay, we can either watch the news 24 hours a day and become fearful and, about what we're hearing, or we can go within and ask to see this differently. And when we are going within, we're in our own, everyone's kind of separated in their own home, you have less distraction from the world and you have the opportunity and the time to work with these ideas and do the transformative work. Now, of course, some people are going to be very distracted in their home because maybe there are several people living there and there's all different problems they have to attend to. And maybe their path is not A Course in Miracles, it's something different. But I really believe that we have this amazing opportunity to do transformative work if we can set aside that fear and that anxiety that comes up as a result of listening to the ego mind. And, just to be aware of the dynamic that's taking place so that we can all join together and work at that level. I know A Course in Miracles talks about the body really being a wholly neutral thing. Mm-hmm. It really just responds to the thoughts of the mind. And that's an important thing to remember because we kind of think that, the body is our truth, and then things happen to it that we don't want to have happen to it. And this is kind of an example of that with this coronavirus and the global pandemic. Mm-hmm. And really, of course, the Miracles teaches us that all thought originates at the mind. Anything that happens to you at the level of form, it goes back to the thought originating in the mind. And generally, when we feel separated from our source, we project conflict. The ego mind does it, and then something happens in our world that is like this, the body, or situations involving the body. And so then we get totally distracted at trying to heal at the level of form. And of course, the Miracles calls that magic. You need to ask the Holy Spirit to help you heal the part of your mind that has helped to create what is happening to your physical form or your environment or your surroundings or the people in your life, because that's the way you can do something about it. You can't try to heal at the level of form something that started at the level of the mind. And that's a really powerful thing to understand, because the mind is incredibly powerful. I've stated before on some of my Facebook posts, you have to decide whether you're going to put the power of your mind behind darkness or the power of your mind behind light, because you will create what you put the power of your mind behind. And that's why it's so important to get on top of this fear and anxiety so it can be transformed.
Wow, that's so powerful. Yeah. I had asked you about lesson 14 in the section of the workbook, because we are looking at the world now in a very fearful way. There's a lot going on that's scary, and it says that God did not create a meaningless world, and it says that our direction is towards perfect safety and perfect peace. So how can you help us understand that more so that we can move away from the outer chaos of the world and into that direction of peace?
Yes, and it's very normal to be fearful about what's happening in the world, because generally that indicates that we've forgotten who we are and our connection to our source. So once again, my answer is kind of the same. Our direction is towards perfect safety and perfect peace. And when we focus on the world, we go away from that. When we focus on the truth of who we are, connected to our source and all of our brothers, the holy sons of God, we feel invulnerable, and we can be at peace. We can feel this sense of peace that kind of passes understanding, like they talk about in the Bible, because that peace is grounded in your centeredness and your oneness with your Creator. It has nothing to do with things going right or being good in the world. It has to do with your connection to your source. And so when we remember that and come back to that, that's how we can experience this perfect safety and perfect peace, because we're invulnerable from that place of awareness. And what happens is the Course in Miracles talks about things becoming your idol before God. And anything can be your idol before God, but you pay more attention to that than your connectedness to your source. So this pandemic, this coronavirus, has become this idol before God that we focus on 24 hours a day and worry about. And so we have to step back and say, wait, where am I putting the power of my mind? I'm going to go back to my source and remember my truth, that I'm not this body, and that I'm connected to the oneness of the Creator. And that's where my strength and my perfect safety and perfect peace come from. Because, in this same lesson, it says, God did not create a world that what God did not create doesn't exist. And everything that does exist is as He created it. The world you see has nothing to do with reality. It is of your own making, and it does not exist, meaning that it's not the truth. We put the power of our mind behind this world, and so it's very real to us, and the effects of it are very real to us. But God did not create it like lots of people believe. We created it as a place for our identity once we felt separate from our source and the mind split.
Yeah. So how do we wake up from a dream that we're not even aware of that we're dreaming?
Yeah, I know. It can seem really difficult, and lesson 14 is early on in the course. So the way that we do it is you do the lessons, and you remember to do those every day, because the lessons help you train your mind to see this world differently. That's what A Course in Miracles is. It says in the introduction, it says, an untrained mind can accomplish nothing. It is the purpose of this workbook to train your mind to think along the lines the text sets forth. And it also says the purpose of the workbook is to train your mind in a systematic way to a different perception of everyone and everything in this world. So by doing the lessons and doing them, oftentimes you don't understand what they mean, but that's okay. You don't have to understand it. If you just do it, it will help to start to transform your thought system and the way you look at the world. And forgiveness work is our function here. I just posted that today on Facebook. Forgiveness, as my function as the light of the world. And that's, I can't remember which lesson it is right now, but I posted that because we have to remember that forgiveness is to release and let go of the past. And the past is the belief that we are in a body, in this world, with all these different problems that are happening to us. So it doesn't mean that the world would disappear. It doesn't mean that your identity as a physical body will disappear. But you will step back from that and recognize it doesn't have the power to take the peace of God, which is what A Course in Miracles tells us about all the time. In fact, I looked this up. It says, and I put it in the back of our calendar books that I give to my course people. And it says in the Bible, one of the disciples asked Jesus, how many times can we forgive? In the King James Version, it says 70 times 7. But in the Aramaic Bible, which is a much more accurate translation, it says 70 times 77. I said, well, I wonder how much that is. So I multiplied it out, and it's 5,390 times. So what that means is that we just live in this continual state of forgiveness. We release and let go. Everything is an opportunity for us to do transformative work. We don't just pull out the tools when we're having a problem. Everything that is before us, whether it's personal or global, we work on, because 5,390 times, you just never stop living from this state of awareness. And that's the difference between learning and practicing A Course in Miracles and living from that place, is that you live in this constant state of forgiveness, and you just always apply it to everything that you see.
Wow. That is so inspiring. Thank you for talking to me today. I just always feel so much more balanced after hearing your perspective on things. And so I appreciate you sharing it with me and with others. Did you want people to know how to find you? How do you feel about that?
Oh, that's fine. I have, I'm on Facebook. They can friend me. Cindy Berry Addis. If they, search it, all they'd have to do is look at the people that you are friends with, and they'd find me if they know you.
Right.
And,
yes.
Yeah. And of course, nobody can meet in person now anyway, so that's probably the best way for us to connect is through Facebook. I do have a prayer to share at the end when you're ready to.
Oh, yes. I would
love
that.
So anyone who's listening, let's close our eyes and focus on our heart center and seeing the light there. Feeling the connectedness to our source and all the holy sons of God. In the presence of the Holy Spirit, I kneel at the sacred inner altar. I hold in my vision the healing and forgiveness work that is before me. Even though I think I am right, I am willing to see this differently. I am willing to allow His vision to guide me beyond the illusion to the truth. I open my heart to the divine healing energy of the Holy Spirit and ask His help in releasing and letting go of the fear and conflict I feel about the COVID-19 coronavirus. I completely turn it over to Him and invite and allow the divine healing grace and light of His presence to wash over me and fill my entire being. As I release and let go of this burden, I now feel the extension of His love flow through me and into the heart of all humanity. As I experience seeing the face of Christ in all my brothers, I feel the oneness and the unity of His sonship. Aligning my vision with His, I now see everyone as a holy son of God, and the pain and suffering of the world is transformed, leaving only a world of peace and light. In this moment, I recognize, as A Course in Miracles says, the holiest of spots on earth, is where in ancient ages become a present now. I release a deep sigh, and I am at peace. Let it be so. Good.
And let it be so.
Yes.
Wow, thank you. That was so beautiful. I could feel the heart or the light in my heart center.
So good. Yes, I love you.
Yeah.
I love that. And as we bring together when you say something like that, it's even more powerful. So thank you for sharing with me, Jenny, and I really enjoyed talking with you today. And if you want to do it another time.
Oh, I would love that.